Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located on the planet Earth. It is time for the PulseWave Report with yours truly, the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave Price Trigger Reports. It is definitely Take Back Friday. Even if you just took a glance at the markets this morning, you'll notice that Bitcoin is up over 2,200. So basically, kind of, sort of erasing yesterday's down movement. And we see that the grains are pretty much quiet today. We did dip all the way down to 14.91 and a quarter in soybeans, and it's struggling to stay positive. We're up 2 now at 15.04 and a quarter. So brief dip below the $15 watermark there in the beans. We still got beans in the teens. Corn this morning is catching a good bid. It's up 9.5 at 657 and 3/4. And if you take a look at your bond futures, you're only positive 1/32. You're still at that 157 handle. U.S. dollar index has been struggling to hang on to the 90 handle. And this is kind of what we've been seeing, moving forward. We do still have disconnects going on also, or should I say dislocations. For instance, the GameStop stock is up $2.88, trading at $179.30 a share. And this is a company that was pretty much bankrupt, on the verge of collapse. And the trading community came in and just propped them up, like straight up, propped them up. When you have a lot of money flooding into equities, it does bode well for the company. That's the one thing that can get a company out of bankruptcy. It's the one thing that even if the company doesn't have any earnings, it can go into the equity market and do a little something, something. So this was a very interesting development. As we've seen this, people being locked indoors under house arrest have nothing else to do. They have nothing else to do but find something to do. And in this day and age, because we have the internet, when people have computers and smartphones, why not go online? Why not set up a trading account? Something you always wanted to do, something that was always in the back of your mind. And you always wondered, could I do this? Do I have the wherewithal to do this? Can I do this? And so people are dipping their toe in. The one thing that tipped the scales and got people really paying attention is the crypto market. When Bitcoin dropped from 20,000 to 3,000, people laughed and sneered at the crypto community, said, "You idiots, you don't know nothing. You are bugging." But then when Bitcoin rallied from 3,000 to 65,000, now everyone's like, huh? What? It's like watching a dude jump off the Empire State Building and splat on the ground, and then 5 minutes later he gets up and walks away. And you're like, but his brains were all over the sidewalk. And now he's put back together again and walking away like nothing happened. Well, that's what happened with Bitcoin. Everyone thought Bitcoin was dead. They thought Bitcoin had fallen from the top of the Empire State Building and went splat on the ground, only to be revived 5 minutes later and walk away like nothing ever happened. Now the same people that were sneering and laughing are in amazement. And they're like, oh my goodness, my friends, my neighbors are getting rich and I'm looking stupid. So then they started getting involved, learning, how can I get involved in the crypto market? Because everyone chases the dream. Everyone wants to get rich quick. Everyone wants to find that one thing, that one bet, that one lottery ticket, that one lotto ticket that's going to get them to the millions. Everyone wants to be invited to the $1 million pottery. Everyone wants to be invited. No one wants to work for it. They just want to be invited to the party. They don't want to open up a small business and build it to profitability. No, no, no. They don't want to go to work at a 9 to 5 and get paid in exchange for their labor. No, no, no. They'd rather sit home and collect a unemployment check or a stimulus check, or to be more specific, a minimum income, a global standard minimum income, which is not far away from arriving. That's right. Global basic income is still coming. Just because you haven't heard them talk about it doesn't mean it's not coming, ladies and gentlemen. Universal basic income is on the way. They've been priming the pump by doing stimulus checks. It seems like every month a new stimulus check comes out. All right. And even now, as we speak, President Biden wants to flood the market with trillions more dollars. So trillions after trillions after trillions. And the thing is this: what you once thought was the truth and existed no longer is the truth and exists. Supposedly, if we were looking and staring down the barrel of hyperinflation, precious metals would soar. Gold and silver has been trading as if inflation is intact and we have no worries and we have no fears. Even the VIX has been acting that way. No worries, no fears, no fear in the market, no fear. Everything's gravy, right? Everything's groovy. Couldn't be better. Party like it's 1999. But what you don't see behind the scenes is that these markets are being oppressed, suppressed, manipulated, kept in check. The truth of the matter is that we have been seeing what I would like to call hyperinflation. It's just that you haven't seen it everywhere, but you have seen it where it matters the most, and that's food and energy. Now, before you go and say, this guy is nuts, there's no hyperinflation in energy. My electric bill is only $100. Well, why don't you tell that to the Texans who got electric bills for $3,000 and $4,000 just not even 90 days ago? Why don't you go holler at them about that? All right. Yeah, that's hyperinflation, folks. Call it whatever you want. Well, there was a weather system that came through, and then there was a systematic failure of the electric. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the reason is. Doesn't matter what the cause was. The fact remains that people got bills for thousands of dollars, and the electric wasn't even on. Okay? Deal with it. This is reality staring you in the face. You cannot deny reality. You can deny people's theories, but you cannot deny reality. Energy costs have already hit hyperinflation levels. People in California still pay more for gas than people in Maryland and Virginia. New York, people who live in New York pay more for gas than people who live in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. These are just facts. You don't have to like it, but it's reality. What about food? Yes. Since I have been here on YouTube for many, 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 many years, I have shown you not just with charts, but with facts and figures that the cost of food has gone up 300%, and you haven't even noticed. That's right. Since 1999, soybeans have quadrupled in price. As we speak right now, today, soybeans are almost up 400% since 1999. 400%. How do you explain that? If that's not hyperinflation, I don't know what is. We could say inflation if maybe the price doubled. We'll say, okay, that's inflationary. But no, the price is almost quadrupled, up almost 400%. How do we account for that? If it's not hyperinflation, then what do you call it when prices soar? We've also seen hyperinflation, not just in food and energy, but we've also seen hyperinflation in the equity market. GameStop was a $20 stock not long ago. Now it's flirting with $200. How does a bankrupt company go from collapsing down to $20 a share only to rally up to almost $200 a share? Did they come out with a new product? Is there a new innovative technology that they have come out with? Can you play video games in your mind now, using your mind? You don't even have to be at home in front of the TV. You can just play the game in your mind? Nope. Have they created some type of video game portal where you can just step into it and play the game in real life and actually take on the characteristics of the character? Really? No, they have not. There is no new technology. There's no breaking cutting edge technology that they've come up with. No. Nope. No groundbreaking anything. No groundbreaking innovation. None of that. It's just that the taxpayers decided, we're going to bail you out. We're going to bail you out. But we're going to do it in such a way that we get paid too. We're going to go up and we're going to prop your stock up. We're going to make your stock go to the moon. But I have a question for you. What happens when that bear market comes? Now, you need to understand a few things when we say bear market or bull market. There is a difference between bear market and bull market. In bear markets, prices continue to fall. All right? Consistently fall, hitting new lows, hitting new 52-week lows. In bear markets, you also have vicious dead cat bounce rallies off of the extreme lows, vicious rallies to make you think that, oh my goodness, the bottom is in. Oh my goodness, it's over. Yes, the bull market's back. No, only to be crushed again and then see the market being taken to new lows or newer lows. Likewise, in the bull market, prices continue to fly upward. Continual new highs, new 52-week highs. Bull markets are accompanied by sometimes often big flash crashes on the way down, big corrections, big pullbacks, intraday spike snaps. People say, oh, the bull market's over, the top is in, let's get short, only to be crushed as the market soars to newer highs. But here's what they don't tell you. Although the market in general can be in a bull market or a bear market, individual shares can be in a bull or bear market of their own aside from the general market. So while the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 and the Dow and the Russell were in a bull market, GameStop was in a bear market. That's right. See, that's what they don't tell you. You can have a bear market come from a bull market in a particular equity, and the rest of the market's going in the opposite direction just because there's a problem with that company or problem with that stock, whatever. So individual shares of stock can have their own bull or bear market aside from and apart from the general market. Likewise, in the crypto space, altcoins can be in a bull market while Bitcoin can be in a bear market and vice versa. Every coin you can think of can be in a bull market, including Bitcoin, but for some odd reason, Dogecoin is plummeting and hitting new 52-week lows. That can happen. As a matter of fact, it often happens. Okay. It is what it is. It is what it is. Okay. You need to understand that. Markets can remain irrational a lot longer than you can remain solvent. This dichotomy has taken many people by storm, and a lot of new people are now becoming interested in the realities of our economy, not just on the market aspects, but the other aspects of the economy. And it's causing people to really reflect on where we are and where we're headed, along with where have we been. It's causing people to pull up a historical price chart of our economy, to pull up a historical price chart on reality. And you have to begin to ask some very, very tough questions. And because it's Friday, we normally let our hair down a little bit because it's the weekend coming up. And we want to relax. I normally will go ahead and turn the lights off early. You know what I'm saying? I'm usually out of here as soon as I finish this live. I'm gonna be kicking back and taking my weekend vacation. That's what we do. You know, that's the lifestyle. So I want to look at a few articles, some very interesting articles that we're going to look at. Now, we won't have time to get into all of them, but I want to look at a few. People are starting, like I said, to take notice about some things. One of the biggest things that people are starting to take notice of is the culture and how we have all of a sudden fallen to the most base levels in society. There is violence on the rise. Everywhere you turn, there's violence. There is signs everywhere of government meddling and government manufacturing of crises. There is government meddling in the marketplace of ideas. Propaganda is everywhere you go. Because your government fears you, they're creating and manufacturing crises to have the citizenry fight at one another instead of turning your attention to the real problem, which is the government. So we're going to take a look at some interesting takes on what people have been observing and see if you can relate to some of these things. See if you see these in your circle of the economy where you live. See if you can relate to some of these realities. Some people have decided that they're going to check out. They're going to go bug out in the middle of the woods and live like a hermit. But the problem is, no matter where you go, you take yourself with you. That's for one thing. And second of all, there is no safe place to run and hide. You can't run and hide from this. All right. It's going to get you. There are people who have decided that they're going to build underground communities and live in these storm shelter type housing units. Some people are paying upwards of $1 million to buy a seat in these underground communities. And unfortunately, these individuals don't get it either. They don't get it. They just don't get it. You are not safe. There is nowhere to run or hide. So, all you're doing is exchanging one reality for another. So you don't want to burn to death, but you choose to drown instead. And that's really what it comes down to, is just means and method. That's it. You're choosing to drown rather than to burn to death, or choosing to burn to death instead of drowning. but the end game is still the same. There's no escape. And that's where we have found ourselves. We are now living in a no escape economy and a no escape market. There's no safe place, no safe haven in the market anymore. As I'm talking to you, gold and silver are negative, and so is the equity market, and so is the bond market. Where is the flight to quality? Where is the safe haven? It no longer exists. These have been broken down and lost to time and antiquity. Whenever the stocks were down, you know that there was going to be a rush to the bond market. Flight to quality, flight to safety. Bonds are no longer safe. Bond prices are falling through the floor. Yields are going through the roof. What are you to do? Not only that, but your precious metals, your gold and silver, is not moving up in value like it should based on current economic conditions. The price is all but muted. Where is your safe haven? There is no safe haven. The reality is there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. Y'all remember that song? I don't know who sings it, but you know it. All right? Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. The only weapon that you truly have at your disposal is information, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. If you do lack in any of these, you will be put at a disadvantage. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not to be dismissive, and I'm not, just pouring ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, and jelly all over this whole prepping idea. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, there's still nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. All right. Even if you were successfully all, warm and snug inside of a bunker, and you happen to get into one of those now hollowed out missile silos that are nuclear blast proof, that's nice. That's all well and good. But your problem is, okay, so you may survive a nuclear blast if one were to be near you, but how will you escape the fallout? Because the problem is you still have to breathe. Your air has to come from somewhere, and that's the outside. Air is outside, not inside. You can have air filters and things of that nature, but are you really going to be able to pump out and filter out all the radiation? Probably not. Probably not. Because you're going to have ventilation. Without ventilation, you can't breathe. Even if you say, well, you know what, we're good to go because we have X amount of these special gas masks. The problem with that is that eventually those are going to run out too. Well, we have 5 years worth of food and we got 5 years worth of water, drinking water, potable water. So we're good to go. But what happens in year 5 when you run out and you have to go outside? At some point, you're going to have to go outside. And that's the point I'm getting at. At some point, you will have to go outside. Well, yeah, but we got 5 years, we got 10 years. At some point, you're still going to need to go outside. The other issue is, what do you do with waste? What do you do with your waste? Human waste and trash. What do you do with your trash? What do you do with your human waste? You're in an underground bunker, but what do you do with your human waste and your trash? You're going to have trash. You're going to have waste. Where does it go? How do you deal with that? You got to have water. Where is it going to be your water source? Even if you were to build up a storage of water, eventually that water is going to go out. It's going to run out. Underground facilities are not perfect, and they're not meant to be a long-term solution. You cannot stay down there indefinitely. You're going to have to come outside. And that's where the games begin. Once you step outside, you're now in an episode of The Walking Dead. You're in an episode of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And now you have to deal with reality. My whole point in this entire illustration is that you cannot escape reality. You're going to have to deal with reality. And see, you can plan for just about every breakdown of society scenario you can think of. But at the end of the day, you are still doomed. Because here's what the underground bunker people are not thinking about. Again, human waste and trash. How do you deal with your human waste and trash? What do you do when the food and water runs out? What do you do? But there's another bigger issue that I don't think any of the underground people have ever even dreamed and thought of. Are you ready for this? All those underground bunker things, they have a weakness, and it's all the same weakness. They have these pipes that go up to the surface, and that's how they get their air and their ventilation. But if that were to become clogged, the people down underneath the surface would suffocate. Enemies could figure that out and say, oh, this is a pipeline, which means that there's definitely people underneath me. Why not I go ahead and smoke these people out and pluck them off one by one and steal their resources? Again, that could happen for reasons even not done, have anything to do with man-made situations. If those things become clogged, someone has to go outside and unclog it. And that's where the adventure begins. As soon as you step outside, that's where the adventure begins. Not thinking about that, are you? A group of survivors could roll up on you and throw down smoke grenades or something, poison or whatever to smoke you out or just to kill you. And then they come in and now they got your spot. That's one scenario. But the biggest scenario that you are forgetting, and I don't know why people don't think about this. You're not thinking about earthquakes and volcanoes. An earthquake can come and crush you. That's right. Crush you. Seal your fate. You are now trapped in your underground bunker. Because an earthquake can just hem you up. It can break your little bunker in half. Okay? Not only that, but there's another issue. Because you don't think about earthquakes. You're basically you're already in a ready-made coffin. If an earthquake happens and crushes you, or it could trap you under there and you can't get out. They don't think about earthquakes. I've never heard one specialist talk about earthquakes. The next issue you got is, what about volcanic eruptions? If a volcanic eruption happens, depending on where you're located and how bad it is, let's say Yellowstone finally erupts. Oh, I'm safe. I'm in my underground bunker. No, you're not. Because remember, the thing you got to breathe, those vents will probably easily become clogged with ash. What is volcanic ash? Fiberglass. What happens if you inhale such fiberglass? It shreds your lungs. You drown on your own fluids and die. How are you going to deal with the volcanic ash? And another thing, even if you were to survive that because you got some kind of high-tech ventilation system that is free from all of that, now there's another issue that you have failed to realize. And that is, over time, all that ash is going to harden. Now you're trapped. It's sort of like having a cave-in or a bunch of boulders fall on top of your location. And now you can't get out. You're covered under several feet of ash. which becomes hardened rock. Now you're doomed and you can't come out. So now that underground bunker has become your coffin. No one thinks about the volcanic situation. No one thinks about the earthquake. Once again, the underground situation is not a long-term solution. It's only a temporary one. And at some point, you're going to have to step outside. Now, here's the other issue. The nuclear one, because everyone likes to talk about nuclear. Now you got to deal with radiation. The water, too, has now been radiated. The water is poison. What are you going to do with that? The water outside is poison. You're going to go to the local lake? Well, you go, yeah, we got these filters. We got these purifiers. Yeah, but what about the radiation? The water is radioactive. What you going to do? How you going to remove the radioactivity from the water? You dig where I'm going? So if nuclear war happens, the people in the bunker are not the safest people. You may be temporarily better off than people on the surface, but you're still going to perish by the same means as the people on the surface. Radiation. What about that? Once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a long-term solution. So there is no safe havens. Okay, what if there's no volcanoes? What if there's no earthquakes? What if there's no nukes? What if it's just the fiat currency collapsing and, food shortages and just panic and chaos on the street? What about that? All right, fine, I'll give you that. But the same problem still exists. At some point, you're still going to have to go outside. And then you're going to have to compete with all the other people up top. You've seen The Walking Dead. How many people have died from walkers versus people dying from other survivors? Survivors are always your biggest challenge. Always. They're the most deadliest thing you got to watch out for. It's other survivors. Especially the big hordes of survivors that have formed gangs and they roam around taking advantage of people who are not so organized. You may say, well, I'm armed to the teeth. Yeah, but you're only one person. And if you're up top, you're done. I'll hunker down in my home. Yeah, but the problem with modern homes is that they have windows. The problem with modern homes is that they have windows and too many ventilation holes where a person can break in. Well, I'm in an apartment building. Okay, so you're worse off depending on what floor you're located on. If you're on the first floor, well, you're doomed. If you're on the top floor, well, you're doomed. If you're in a townhouse, manufactured home, detached, single family, attached single family, you got windows and vents, and that's your biggest problem. You got windows, doors, and vents. Too many modes of entry. Even if you boarded up all the windows, they can still be kicked in. Your door can be kicked in. I'm a hunker down. How you gonna hunker down? You got too many means and modes of entry. Let's just keep it a buck. Unless you have one of them George Jetson houses where the steel thing comes down. Remember, like on that what's that show? What's the movie? Everybody, what is it? Purge. Remember Purge? If you had the money, you could buy the house where the steel thing comes down and blocks the windows and your door, so nobody can get in. Unless you have something like that, you know what I'm saying? You toast. And if we're talking about breakdown society, rule without law and all that, you still got to go outside. Even if you have, I got this much food and water. If we got to break down society, indoor plumbing doesn't work. So now your biggest problem is waste and trash? What do you do if you're waste? What do you do if you're trash? Because we're talking about breakdown society, you know, we're talking about probably, and you ain't got no indoor plumbing working. There's a problem at the water plant. You're not going to have the world go around like it normally does if you got a breakdown society. You may even be without electricity. And depending on how bad the situation is, there's another issue that people don't think about. And I find this puzzling that people never talk about this major thing. And my wife and I was just talking about it. And I wonder why it's never been something that has been addressed in even the Walking Dead series. There's a big flaw in the Walking Dead series. We know that at least 10 years of time lapse has happened. We know that the Walking Dead, they've been out there for at least 10 years, all right, since this whole thing happened, all right? 10 years is a long time to have no electricity, no running water. If there's no electricity and no running water, there's a bigger problem, ladies and gentlemen, that no one really wants to talk about or deal with, and I find it puzzling. Do you know what the biggest problem would be if we had, let's say, an EMP attack and the whole, you know, electrical grid where it collapsed? The biggest problem we have is the nuclear power plants. The hundreds, if not thousands, of nuclear power plants worldwide. If there's no power, if there's no running water, if there's no electricity, if there's a breakdown of society, whatever, if all it takes is one nuclear power plant to go into meltdown and you have chaos. You got Chernobyl. If just one power plant melts down, it's game over. In the United States, we have, I don't know how many, we got dozens, maybe hundreds. If they were to all melt down, because we're talking about breakdown of society, right? That's what you've been prepping for, right? What about those nuclear power plants? No one talks about that. If there's no one there to man them, or there's no, electrical source to power them, they melt down. And now you're in for a world of hurt. You're talking about it. That's worse than nuclear war. Y'all see what happened with Chernobyl? You saw what happened in Japan a few years ago? Come on, man. And that was just one little station. What if we got several in the United States that melt down? That's a worldwide catastrophe in and of itself. You're not safe. Whether you underground or not, you still gonna get that work. You're gonna get this work. Don't matter if you underground. That radiation got you. You breathing it in. Because your air ventilation system ain't getting out that. You ain't getting out all that radiation. That's too much. That's too much. What you gonna do? There is no safe havens. All right? There are no safe havens. Let's take a look at our first article here. I found it very, very interesting. Quote, fools, as long as it has been said, are indeed separated, soon or eventually, from their money. So alas, are those who, responding to a general mood of optimism, are captured by a sense of their own financial acumen. Thus it has been for centuries, thus in the long future, it will also be. And that's a quote from John Kenneth Galbraith from A Short History of Financial Euphoria. There are people that have been sounding the alarm, saying signs of an epic bubble of historic proportions are everywhere. The stock market is a bubble, with valuations exceeding that of 2001. Y'all remember that tech bubble when that bursted in 2000? Margin debt is at all-time highs. The bond market is a bubble. Well, the bond market is not a bubble because the bond market prices have been falling through the floor. You can say that the yields are in a bubble, but not bond prices. Bond prices are not in a bubble. Bond prices have been falling through the floor. Housing is another one. The Fed artificially suppressing rates and pumping trillions of QE into Wall Street. Housing is experiencing another bubble, with prices now far exceeding the 2005 peak. Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptocurrencies are a bubble, being driven by excess liquidity. Corporate, government, and personal debt are at all-time highs and heading higher. The writer of the article says clueless millennial adults are using their stymie checks to day trade on Robinhood. Now, the shysters have come up with a ridiculous concept called non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, which has created a further frenzy of greed and fleecing. We are busy selling worthless electronic concepts to each other at higher and higher prices. The world has truly gone mad. Stop right there. I believe that the author here is struggling with a few things. I get it that you say, the housing market is in the bubble, stocks are in the bubble. I concur with that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. When we say bubble, we mean ridiculous price levels. Now, of course, if you listened to me yesterday, we talked about price. There's no such thing as a price being too high, because by nature, price can go to infinity, okay? We do live in a reality, right? We live in a world, let's be honest. So you gotta put things into perspective. I appreciate writers writing articles and giving their opinions and their experiences, but you got to put things into perspective. First of all, the author of this obviously knows nothing about trading the markets, because he's now basically shooting bullets and taking shots at speculators, people trading and using Robinhood, as if they don't know what they're doing and they're stupid. Okay? This is the sour grapes mentality. You see your neighbor buying, GameStop at $20 and cashing out at 200, and you're jealous. All right, that's what that is. Now, to say that millennials are clueless is also kind of mean-spirited, because you're now grouping an entire group of people. There are smart and dumb people in every generation. Okay? The so-called greatest generation of our forefathers who went through the Great Depression 1.0, because we're in 2.0 now, if you didn't know. They weren't all that either. Let's be honest. We had Jim Crow back then. So no, they wasn't so great, if we want to keep it a buck, okay? And you had dumbness that existed back then too. The very fact that Jim Crow laws existed proved that there were dumb people that were alive during the Great Depression and made it through the Great Depression. There's no such thing as something being too expensive. We talked about that. All right? Supply and demand. It doesn't make sense to some people who don't understand economics and don't understand markets. Who are you to say what something should cost? Who are you to say what someone should pay for something? You heard the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. There's truth to that. We talked about that yesterday. So if you threw out, a vintage Mickey Mantle card because it was of no value to you, but let's say the value in that card was $50,000, and you throw it out and your neighbor sees you throw it out, and then he comes behind you and picks it up and goes and cashes it in and gets $50,000 for it. Again, one man's trash ended up being another man's treasure. Now, who are you to say that the person who threw the card away was wrong? What if he didn't care how much it cost? To him, it was of no value and he threw it out. Who are you to judge that man? You don't know why he threw the card out. You dig what I'm saying? I don't care. There's no reason why you want to throw $50,000 out the window. I don't want to hear that. There's no. You don't make no sense now, Dax. You talking nonsense now. Shoot, if I had $50,000 Mickey Mantle card, you think I'm gonna throw it in the trash? Nah, man. That's just someone who's dumb. They don't understand economics. They don't understand money. You don't throw money out the window like that. Again, you don't know every human being on the planet intimately. You don't know why he threw that card out. What if he threw that card out and it meant nothing to him because he was raped by a Catholic priest who gave him that card after he raped him when he was a little boy? And he kept the card all these years and finally decided, I'm throwing it out because it reminds me too much of what happened to me. See what I'm saying? You sound like you would feel like an idiot now if that was the facts in this case. You dig what I'm saying? You can't judge what is of value to someone else. So to say, well, GameStop should not be trading at almost $200 a share. It's ridiculous. It's a bankrupt company. They don't have no new innovation. Yeah, but people are saying that it is of value to them. For whatever reason, who are you to say? The company didn't go completely out of business. The stock would have been delisted. It was still in business. Just because it was in a bankrupt state doesn't mean that it wasn't still value to someone in there. How you know that someone didn't want to come along and buy the company? You don't know why people buy and sell the way they do. Oh, they're clueless speculators. You cannot judge why another person is buying something. What if someone bought GameStop because that was something that them and their mom used to do years ago? They would buy shares of stock together, and GameStop was the last share of stock they bought before the mama died of cancer. And so now this is nostalgic for this person and therapeutic. So now he buys GameStop shares of stock. He said, I'm going to do it until they go out of business. This just gives me pleasure. It reminds me of the days I spent day trading this stock with my mom. You don't know why people are doing what they're doing. So who are you to judge when it comes to the marketplace? Buyers and sellers, supply and demand. All right? Doesn't matter why a person's buying or selling. You don't know the story. Now, the author continues on and says that the herd will surely be separated from their money when this everything bubble bursts. All right, let me dispel something for you here. People assume that the markets is a zero-sum game. That is not necessarily true. That is, matter of fact, it is not true. Las Vegas and Atlantic City is a zero-sum game. When it comes to the financial markets, it is not a zero-sum game. It is not. All right? For every buyer, there's a seller. You don't know why someone's selling. You don't know why someone's buying. When Bitcoin was falling the other day and I came on and I told you where I got short at and where I'd taken my profit, I sold while the price was falling. Someone else bought when the price was falling. Are you saying that it's a zero-sum game that I won and the other person lost? I beg to differ. I sold and made a profit. Let's assume the person that bought from me when I sold it held it until right now. Guess what? They're up because Bitcoin is up 3,300 points right now. You see why it's not a zero-sum game? The financial markets are not a zero-sum game. It does not mean because you bought and another person sold that they are a loser. Every time you buy and sell, it doesn't mean that someone will necessarily lost on that trade. You need to understand that it's not a zero-sum game. The person who bought Bitcoin at 10 cents and sold yesterday or sold a year ago or sold today is a winner. Likewise, a person who sold today or sold at any other time in the past does not make them a loser. They could have sold at the right price and was able to take advantage of a temporary pullback and then got out and took profit. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to know another secret of trading the markets, and that secret is you can be a short-only strategy trader and make money consistently in a bull market. You can be a long-only trader and make money in a bear market consistently. Did you know that? There are people who only buy, they never short anything. They're always long the market. They may be long a put, they may be long a call option, they may be long a share of stock, they may be long a futures contract, they may be long a forex contract, they may be long a cryptocurrency. They only take long positions and can do quite well. Now, granted, it's harder to be a one-sided trader. All right, it's harder to be long only or short only. But though those are viable strategies and they can work consistently. Yeah, you probably didn't know that, but it's true. It's facts. So you don't know why people are buying or selling, and you don't know if they're taking profit or if they're taking a loss when they do so. You don't know intimately every person on the planet's finances. You're not sitting behind every computer screen watching people buying and selling and watching and looking at their portfolios and knowing who's winning and who's losing. You have no idea. You have no idea. You can only assume. So to say the herd will surely be separated from their money when everything bubble bursts, first of all, we've had boom and busts long before I was born, and we will have booms and busts long after I'm gone. There will always be booms and busts for whatever reason. You do not know why things go up or things go down. They just do. When we were at the internet age, anything that was an internet related stock went through the roof. People were back then saying, what a dumb thing. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. It's the internet. These companies aren't making any money. What is their business? How do you make money on the internet? There's no internet. Internet doesn't make any money. This is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I'm not putting money in that. I'm not buying. I'm not involving myself in the tech sector. I don't understand it, so I'm not getting involved. Sound familiar? Warren Buffett. That's right, Warren Buffett. He missed all of that. All right? It was stupid. Now all of a sudden he's involving in it. He's being involved. Getting involved. All right? So these booms and busts happen all the time. There was a time before my day where anything dealt with electronics was all of that. Did you this or did you that? Ooh, I'm getting involved. There were people who laughed at Apple when they came out with their first computer. They laughed at Apple. There were people who laughed at IBM and Apple. They laughed at them. What a dumb thing. This will never be widely accepted. Sound familiar? Bitcoin will never be widely accepted. Personal computers, that's not going to take. You're talking about everyone owning a personal computer. That will never happen. That will never happen. This is a novelty item. We don't need that. We don't need that. Now everybody and their mama has multiple computers in their home. Desktops, laptops, screens, you name it. Smartphones, smart TV, smart refrigerator, smart this, smart that. Computers are everywhere. So there's always someone naysaying new technology or new innovation and calling it a fad, only to get involved in it way after the fact. Okay, so once again, you can't use these glaring generalities. Okay, you just can't do it. The author then goes and says the concept of risk has been bastardized and ignored for now. All right, says who? Now you're assuming that people are over leveraging themselves or abusing margin or trading without stops. You're assuming that people are just buying GameStop and not placing protective stops or not hedging themselves in the options market. Again, assuming people are idiots. Not everybody is an idiot. Yes, there are people who are approaching the financial markets with a gambler's mentality. Those people will face ruin. I broke that down for you, the pros and cons of using gaming theory in the markets. We dealt with that yesterday. So if you missed yesterday's morning PulseWave report, then you want to go and check that out. The experts will continue to declare buy now and miss out on the riches. I'm sure these bubbles will burst, but I have no idea when. It could be next week, or they could grow for another few years. I don't pretend to know, but I will not participate in the madness. Again, you're saying because of your own bias and stubbornness, you're going to step aside and miss out on an opportunity to become financially independent. Because that's what you're saying. You're saying I'm smarter than everyone else. I'm the smartest man in the room. I already know the outcome of what's happening. You're all going to be poor and broke, and you're going to lose everything. This is not the casino. This is not Atlantic City. This is not Las Vegas. People are not putting all their money on Black 11. All right. This is the financial markets. All right. Now, obviously, again, if people approach the markets with ignorance, if they don't understand risk management, if they don't understand how the markets work, if they don't have an edge or a strategy when they approach these markets, then yeah, they're probably going to lose all their money. But you're assuming that everyone who is involved in this is ignorant of what I just said. Not every young person is ignorant of the markets. Not every young person is ignorant of how not to abuse leverage and margin and how and don't know how to use protective stops and other strategies when they're trading. You're assuming that the pulse waves don't exist. The pulse waves exist, my friend. The author just doesn't know about them. If he did, he wouldn't have wrote this article, because then he would have proved it to himself. He would have saw when he went to PulseWaveTrading.com and signed up for the PulseWave report, he would have saw that all of his preconceived notions would have been destroyed. His worldview concerning the tradable markets would have been blown up. You can make these statements when you don't know. And obviously the author doesn't know. So then he goes on to say, becoming debt-free and more anti-fragile is my sole focus as these bubbles grow. How are you going to do that? If the US dollar is continually declining in value, and if interest rates continue to soar, your spendable income is being deteriorated by the day. How are you going to become debt-free as the bubbles grow? The only way to become debt-free is to have a strong enough income. Most people do not have a strong income. They may have an income, but it's not strong. Most people barely make enough to even meet their basic monthly bills and expenses. They don't have extra money. See, you can say that to a person who's living a little bit beyond their means. All they got to do is scale down and restrict their spending. But the average person is what we call the working poor. There are more working poor than not. All right. People assume that all you have to do is pay down your debt and you'll be okay. That's nice and it sounds really great, but you can't do it because the majority of the people who work in the United States of America are labeled as the working poor. There are more households in the United States of America that make less than $50,000 a year than there are those that make over that. And I'm saying combined household incomes. According to the federal government of the United States of America, $50,000 is the poverty level threshold. If you make $50,000 or less per year, according to the United States of America, you are in poverty. You are living in poverty. How is a person making $50,000 a year supposed to get out of debt when making $50,000 a year in most jurisdictions, in most states, is not enough to survive? Have you looked at housing? Have you looked at rent? Have you looked at what it takes to purchase a home? Most people don't have that. They can't get it done. In the last year alone, tens of millions of people lost their jobs. So if you were to go and try to fill out a mortgage application today, you're going to show, in some cases, 12 months of unemployment. Your application is already blown up before it even gets to underwriting. You can't have gaps in income. The very basic underwriting guidelines for a mortgage is a minimum of a solid 2 years of work history, which that means is in the last 24 months, do you have consistent work history with consistent income? It can't be scattered. It can't be scattered. They're going to look at your W-2s for the last 2 years. Then they're going to look at your bank statements for the last 6 months. Then they're going to say, let us see your tax returns for the last 2 years. That's just basic standard underwriting. Basic standard underwriting. Okay? If you do not have 2 years of if you don't have the last two W-2s, if you don't have W-2s for the last 2 years, then the next question is going to be, okay, were you unemployed? Were you a student? Or are you self-employed? Okay, if you're self-employed instead of W-2s for the last 2 years, they're going to want to see bank statements for the last 2 years, along with tax returns for the last 2 years. That's just basic underwriting guidelines to obtain a mortgage in the United States of America. No fancy mortgage, just a regular mortgage. All right. I've been out the mortgage game for many years, so my memory is a little slow. So those of you who are in the industry, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I say something wrong. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. Basic underwriting guidelines, okay? You can go with federal loans like Fannie Mae, or you can go conventional. Conventional mortgage, like I just gave out to you, those are the standard things they're looking at. To be honest with you, in my opinion, FHA loans are harder to get because they're going to take an additional look at you. They don't just want that. Now they want you to meet certain DTI guidelines, debt to income guidelines. Yeah. Yeah. And FHA is strict. Your debt to income is strict. Conventional loans usually can be a little bit more relaxed with the DTIs. Some will just ignore that altogether as long as, certain other criteria are met. But if you want a traditional FHA loan, you're going to have to get mortgage insurance, which can be costly, and they're going to want to see them DTIs, man. So when they pull your tri-merge credit report, tri-merge meaning they're going to look at all three credit bureaus, Equifax, TransUnion, and I forget the other one. Like I said, I've been out the game for a minute. Okay. And they're going to want a down payment. Unless things have changed, I believe FHA is still like 3% down payment. But a conventional mortgage, they're going to want that, they're going to want, 10 to 20%. Traditionally, it's 20% down payment. All right. So just a standard vanilla mortgage, you're going to need some money. You're going to need, if you go FHA, you're going to need that mortgage insurance. And you're going to need the down payment. If you go conventional, you're going to need a down payment. And so you're going to need to, and your paper is going to have to be spotless. Your paperwork is going to have to be spotless. That income cannot go up and down. And they're going to look at any irregular deposits into your banking account. When I say irregular deposits, like anything that's large. If your average deposit is this much, and all of a sudden you got a $20,000 deposit, now they're going to say your money has to be sourced and seasoned. Your down payment also is going to have to be sourced and seasoned. What does sourced and seasoned mean? Source means what is the source of this money that you just received, this big old piece of money you got? What is the source of that? You just got $100,000 deposit, and you work at McDonald's making $20,000 a year. Where that money come from? Oh, I hit the lottery. Oh, it was inheritance, something like that, or an insurance settlement. Okay, fine. So that's the source. Now it has to be seasoned. They're going to want that money to be sitting there in your account a minimum of 90 days in most cases. Back in the day, you could get away with 30 days. But they're going to want that money sourced and seasoned. You're going to have that. Once again, we're dealing with the majority of Americans who live under that poverty level. What is the poverty level again? $50,000 or less per year. So once again, how are you becoming debt-free? See, these debt-free programs and stuff, I'm not slamming them, but they only work for certain people. A lot of people listen to those radio programs telling you, oh, here's my system, get my book on how to get debt-free in 10 years and all this other stuff, pay off your mortgage in 10 years, blah, blah, blah. You got to have a strong income to do that. I'm sorry. You cannot do that working at McDonald's or working at Wendy's or working at Walmart or any dead-end job where you're making minimum wage. Okay? You're not going to be able to do it. You can't do it. It's impossible. And here's another thing that they don't want to talk about. A lot of the people that make that minimum wage, they don't have a lot of debt as far as credit card debt. They might have some student loans, but aside from that, they really don't have a lot of debt because they don't have a lot of money in the first place. So no one's going to give them a lot of credit. The people that have the most debt are the ones that have the strongest incomes. In the world that we live in, it's changed a lot in the last 20 years. There used to be like a rule of thumb. And the rule of thumb was either you had credit or you had money. It was rare to see people with both. Most of the people, from my experience, that had a lot of money had the worst credit. The people that had little to no money had the best credit. It was a weird thing. It was very weird, very weird. But I'm just telling you the truth. It's a fact that I saw in my practice. That's what I saw. I saw the people that had little to no money usually had the best credit. The people that had a lot of money had the worst credit. I think that's kind of like been turned on its head now, from what I believe. I would have to talk to my banking sources to find out. But that's how it is right now. So I don't see how you're going to become debt-free and financially free without investment. All right? Either you get rich because of an insurance settlement, or an inheritance, or you hit the lottery, or because of your investments. Those are the only ways to do it. All right. Now, investments, as far as the definition for the sake of this particular discussion, is not limited to I bought GameStop at $20 and now it's 200. Investments can also, as far as I'm concerned, means talent and ability. Okay. For instance, if you're a rapper and you make it big all of a sudden, and you go quadruple platinum, you go diamond, okay, now you're a millionaire because you invested in your talents and abilities. Investment can be into the financial markets. Investment can be into talent and ability, even someone else's talent and ability. All right, that's still an investment. It may not be a financial asset, but it's an investment. Not all investment is in financial assets. Investment can be in commodities. Investment can be in in drilling rights, or property rights, because you found diamonds underneath the ground on your property. All right. And so we're talking about investment. That's what it means. Investment, investing in talent and ability, someone else's talent and ability. All right. Investment. Those are the only ways to get rich. All right. Those are the only ways to truly get wealthy, is investment, inheritance, or settlements. Those are the three ways to get rich. All right. Either you inherit it, you get it by means of settlement, or you get it by means of investment. Let me define settlement for you. Settlement meaning contractually, meaning that I got money from an auto accident. I got money from my house burning down. I got money because I sued somebody. I got money because I won big at the casino over the weekend. So they had to settle up with me. I got a settlement there. When you cash in your chips for money, that's a settlement. All right. You're settling up. That's a settlement. All right. So it doesn't matter if it's, so when I say settlement, I'm including winnings, lottery winnings, gambling winnings. All right. That's all included in settlement. Insurance settlements. Okay. That's settlement. So again, inheritance, settlement, or investment. Those are the ways that people get wealthy traditionally. Okay. The author didn't mention any of that. Didn't mention any of that. How do you plan to go about what you just said? How are you going to do that? Now, there's another thing that you need to understand too. Now, this is not that popular, but it has happened on occasion. I have known it by firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. There is a small segment of society that this happens to. So before I get into that, let me just explain another thing to you. There is no such thing. If you live in the United States of America, there is no such thing as debt free. Not really. Not in the purest sense of the word. When we say debt free, it means you owe no man. You owe nobody anything. From a financial perspective, we're talking about financial. We're not talking about you owe somebody a favor. I'm talking about financially. If you are a American U.S. citizen, you will never know debt freedom, not in its purest organic sense of the word. You will always owe somebody some money because it's the way that the society is set up. You will always owe taxes if you have an income and you live in the United States. Therefore, you can never be completely out of debt. You will always owe. That's one way. The second way, if you own property in the United States of America, you will always owe property taxes. You don't really own the property, even if you own the property outright, meaning that there's no mortgage on it, you still don't own it. You're basically really just renting it. I know it sounds twisted, but think about it. If I own a plot of land worth $10 million, let's say I own mad acres somewhere, pick your state, and it's worth 10 million bucks, and I don't have a mortgage on it, I own it outright, and it's undeveloped land. The state's going to be coming after me every year, wanting me to give them some money for the right of me owning land in their jurisdiction. Because what they're really saying to me is, it's not really your land. All of the land belongs to the queen. All the land belongs to the king. If you live in the United States of America, you don't really own anything. The government owns it. Now you say, how so? I own the property outright, undeveloped land, no mortgage. Even if my property taxes ain't but $1,000 a year, what do you think happens if I don't pay that $1,000? I'm going to lose the land. The government's going to come and take my land. The government gets to extort you. And if you refuse to pay, they come by force with the threat of violence and take your land. So in the United States of America, you cannot truly be debt-free, not in the purest sense of the word. Another way you cannot be purely debt-free in the United States of America is because if you live somewhere, you have to pay utilities. If you want running water, if you want indoor plumbing, if you want electricity, you're going to have to receive a utility bill. And you're going to owe the state money for using indoor plumbing, using their water. You're also going to owe them money for using electricity. Now, I know what some of you smart Alex are going to say. Dex, you're wrong. I am 100% self-sustained. I'm off the grid. I have solar panels, and I have a well, and I get my water from a well, and I'm good to go. I don't have a utility bill. Once again, I would say to you, young man, young woman, you are a liar. Even if you live like Huck Finn in the middle of the woods in a cabin, all right, and you got solar panels, and you got a lake right next to you, so you don't have to worry about water, and you got your own vegetable garden. You got a couple of heads of cattle. You got beef. You got some pigs. You got pork. You got chickens. You got your poultry and your fish, or you got fish. You're 100% off the grid, 100% sustained. I'm here to tell you, young man, young woman, even though you live like a hermit, the fact that you are listening to me right now means you are receiving a utility bill. You're like, what are you talking about? Because you're probably listening to me on your smartphone or through the internet. If you have internet, that means you're paying someone for the internet. You're paying a cable company. Cable providers are now considered as utilities. Did you know that? They get to operate as a utility, which means that they're considered an emergency. So when power lines go down, trees go down, your electricity and your cable, your internet, are the first things to be repaired. They're considered along the line with gas lines and water pipes, all of that. Why do you think? Well, at least in my area, I'm sure in another area they call it something else. Before you can begin any kind of building project, you have to call Miss Utility to come out and mark the utility things on the ground for you, so you don't burst a pipe. All right, so you don't electrocute yourself or explode. All right. So yes, you still have a utility bill. Well, no, I have a phone with Verizon. Really? Verizon is a utility. They're not a phone company anymore, because they offer high-speed internet access. Anyone who is an ISP, according to the government now, is considered a utility. You are a necessary part of the U.S. infrastructure. Did you know that? If you don't know, now you know. I just told you. Okay? Now you know. You paying somebody. If you got a smartphone, then you have a smartphone bill. Again, you, sir, ma'am, are not debt-free in the purest sense of the word, because you have ongoing monthly and or annual bills that you receive that you must pay, and they can never be paid off because you will always continue to use them. Just something to think about. All right, just saying. All right, this is it. So I think the author is falling short of realizing that you'll never be debt free. I have known personally people who have had their homes paid off, no mortgage, only to lose the house to the state because they cannot afford to pay the property taxes. That's right. I've known people to lose their homes. Yep. Think about it. That happens every day in this country. People lose their property because they can't afford to pay the taxes. It's sad, but it's true. So are you really debt free? You thought you was doing something when you paid off your mortgage? You can pay your mortgage off and still lose your house. If that ain't serfdom, if that's not slavery, then I don't know what is. That is modern day slavery. Every person who is an American citizen is a ward of the state, and you are in perpetual servitude to the state. The state is going to come to you with their hand out every month like clockwork, every year like clockwork. So don't you forget that, ladies and gentlemen. These are facts. Okay? Now, they have a little story here of the real estate bubble, and I found it very interesting. Check this out. The writer says, I have two personal anecdotes which have convinced me these bubbles are all-encompassing and reaching their zenith. I bought a condo in Wildwood back in 2004 with a friend near the top of the housing market. The plan had been to flip it in a couple of years for a nice profit. The best laid plans often go awry. We bought it for $325,000. We got plenty of use from it, and we were able to rent it out every summer. They rented it out every summer. We put it up for sale in 2015. The asking price was $275,000. All right, now keep in mind they bought it for $325,000. Now they want to sell it for $50,000 less. They're selling it for $275,000. Not a drop of interest. We kept it for sale for 3 years and had 0 offers on the house. See why I said real estate is an illiquid asset? People don't like to hear that. We lowered the price to $250,000. Wow, that's a $75,000 haircut. And eventually got an offer for $240,000 in January 2018. 14 years later, we had sold it for a loss of $85,000. So much for real estate always appreciating. Fast forward to 2021, and the unit above ours just sold for $383,000. In just over 2 years, the value of these condos in the eyes of current buyers rose by 60% after setting at $240,000 for over a decade. Nothing changed other than perception of value. Is the next stop 500,000 or 250,000? I have no idea. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a stark reality for a lot of people, not just the author. All right, the author learned a valuable lesson about investing. Just because you invest in something doesn't mean that the price is going to appreciate. It doesn't mean that the investment is going to pan out. Just because the investment doesn't pan out also doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't a good investment. The problem that the author experienced in that example is, first of all, they didn't understand the type of market that they entered into. We discussed that yesterday. If you missed yesterday's live, you're definitely going to want to go check that out, because I went into depth and I broke down different type of markets for you. But I'll just sum it up by saying this. Real estate is a buy and hold investment. Okay? It's not the financial markets, which are not designed for buy and hold. I don't care what your professor in your economics class told you. All right? It is a buy and hold investment. The author lost patience and sold at a loss. No one told them to sell it at a loss. For whatever reason, they felt they had to sell it at a loss. And they did. If they would have held on to it, then this wouldn't have been part of the article. Time horizon is a big deal when you're dealing with buy and hold assets. Plus, they mentioned that it was a financial drain on them. That's another reason why people, when they get involved in investing, they fail, because of lack of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. All right? They went into this undercapitalized. You don't go into an investment undercapitalized, because then you're going to be doomed and destined to fail also. All right? Another issue is that they saw this as an investment in the first place. See, that's another misconception. Real estate is not an investment, people. Come on now, you ain't got to, I don't have to tell you that. You read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Everybody now, mama done read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Come on. You don't need Robert Kiyosaki to tell you that real estate is not an investment. It's only an investment if you're getting a net gain from it. So if the mortgage is $3,000 a month, but you rent it out for $3,500 a month, now you have a net cash flow of $500. Therefore, it has now become an investment, because you are now receiving money. Instead of cutting a check to the bank every month, you're getting checks cut to you. All right? You got somebody else to pay that mortgage for you. Okay? That's the only way that this scenario would have panned out positive for this particular person. The mere fact that they went into this knowing that it would be a financial drain on them, because they can only rent it out once a year, that was a problem. This was an investment he should have never went into. It's not the investment's fault. All right? It's the investor's fault, because you didn't do your homework. You didn't rigorously educate yourself on the market. You just figured, because you probably watched Flip That House on cable, you figured you could do it too. Why not me? If everyone else is doing it, then why can't I do it? That's the biggest error that people make. You think just because other people have done it or are doing it, that you can do it too. How are you going to do it without an edge? You see, what they don't show you on that TV show is the amount of work and research that goes into doing that. I have known professional house flippers. All right? I've seen people even do it when the real estate market was at its lowest. But the way they went about it, their plan, their business plan was incredible. that to the point where everything they were doing themselves, they would find a shack and flip it up and fix it up, and it really didn't cost them nothing except for just the materials, because one of them was an accountant, CPA, the other person was a plumber, the other person was a carpenter, the other person on the team was an electrician. All right, then they had a mason. They had a team. Their company was a team. So any work that needed to be done, they could get the work done for free because they would be the ones doing the work. Think about it. So all they had to do was put up the money to buy the little shack, and then they hooked it up. They didn't have to worry, oh, it's going to cost us way too much money. We're over budget because, man, this is taking too long. I can't deal with it, you know? So they didn't have to worry about that. All right? I don't think this author had that kind of plan. I don't think they had a team, because you mentioned just him and a buddy. All right? You didn't know your market. If you didn't buy a fixer-upper, you didn't understand your market. You didn't think it through clearly. All right? You didn't think it through clearly. That was really not an investment. It would have only became an investment if you played the long game and understood that what game you're in is a buy and hold game. Real estate is always a buy and hold game. Real estate is one of those things that when you purchase it, you're supposed to purchase it outright. All right. And if you carry a mortgage on it, you're supposed to have a body in there. All right. You need to go and watch The Wire. All right. You can learn a lesson from Chris and Snoop, because they always had a body in their buildings. Ba-dum-bum. That was a little bit of corny humor there. But the fact remains, they had a body in every abandoned house. If you're going to get into the real estate game, make sure if this is an investment, that it's acting and performing as an asset and not a liability. Because real estate is a liability as long as you're cutting a check to the bank and not netting a profit or gain from it. And don't say, well, no, my profit is, the capital appreciation. You cannot use capital appreciation. It's not going to work, because you don't control that. That's something you hope. You don't control that. You hope that. The only way to really play the game correctly is if when you buy that house, that property, you pay cash for it. If you buy raw land, you pay cash for it, not a mortgage. As long as you have a mortgage on there, and this is a non-performing asset, then it's not an asset. There's no such thing as a non-performing asset. It's called a liability. Non-performing assets are called liabilities. Anything that you have to carry and it's not making you money is a liability. All right? So you need to understand that. Okay? Hey, you made it. Yeah, that's right. Fees and closing costs are also never talked about on TV. That's right. Fees and closing costs. Closing costs can be an animal. It can be a straight up beast, a straight up monster. Case in point, if you buying property, if you own property in the state of Pennsylvania, unless something has changed in the last 30 years I don't know about, that's they pay the most taxes out of any state in the union that I've seen, if my memory serves me right. They pay like 12, 15 different taxes. It's absurd how they do people in Pennsylvania. So my Pennsylvanians out there listening, you know what I'm talking about. You guys got like school tax, poll tax, this tax, that tax, Frosted Flakes tax, Starburst tax, now and later tax. You got tax on tax. I will never forget that my first Pennsylvania mortgage application I saw. My goodness, boy. And this is all rolled into their property taxes. They got like more taxes rolled into their property taxes than I've seen anywhere else, man. Terrible. And they're not necessarily the highest tax area in the country, but they got the most individual unbundled or bundled taxes I've ever seen. Make it look like you're looking at a medical bill for Medicare. All my Medicare people out there know what I'm talking about. You ever read the Medicare EOB's explanation of benefits? and they have the bundles and unbundling and truncated code diagnoses and all that nonsense. Well, that's Pennsylvania on their property taxes. Crazy. Anyway, so yeah, he didn't understand the nature of the game. He didn't understand what kind of market he was entering into. Real estate is an illiquid asset, an illiquid investment. All right, it's designed for buy and hold, but people do it wrong. They think they're gonna go up in there and they're gonna flip this house. You need to do some serious research, my man. Seriously, you just don't go into real estate. Oh, I'm gonna get rich. Say what? How you figure? All right. Even when the real estate market was going bananas, I saw people losing money. Okay. You don't control the market. You can only flow with the market. But if you don't understand what you're doing and you're undercapitalized and you don't understand the difference between a liability and an asset, then you're in trouble. Assets pay you. You make money from an asset. All right. Like the PulseWave report. It's an asset because you're going to make a ridiculous amount of money over and beyond what you pay for your monthly premium. So that's an asset because it's making you money. It's helping you to attain income. See what I'm saying? If you were to subscribe to the PulseWave report, never used it, then it's considered a liability or a bill because you're not doing anything with it. You're just paying it, but you're not using it. But if you're paying for it and using it and making money off of it, it's an investment. It's an asset, right? Just like a college education for some people is an investment because after they pay for that education, they're going to go to work in their field of study and make way more money than it cost them for the education. That's why people are willing to go into hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to go to law school or medical school, because when they come out, when they get into private practice, they're going to make way more money than they spent on the education. The education will pay for itself. However, if you pay X amount of money for a college education, and then when you get out, you're not working in your field, then that college education was just a liability for you. It was not an asset. It was not an investment because it didn't pay you back. You didn't get paid for the field of study you paid for. So if you get a degree in gingerbread baking, and when you get out, you got your doctorate on how to make gingerbread cookies. All right, you're a gingerbread doctorate, and when you come out, you're not even in the food industry. You don't have a bakery. You're not baking. You're not chefing. You work as an auto mechanic. Well, then you just wasted your money. That money you spent on getting a doctorate in gingerbread cookie making was a liability. It was a bill, and it never paid you back. So you cannot say it was an investment because it never paid you back. You dig what I'm saying? All right. So we can see here that the author is messing up in a couple of different ways because he doesn't understand the financial markets, the buying and selling, supply and demand. And you can't say what asset is worth to someone else. One man's trash is another man's treasure. People have their own motivations and ulterior motives for buying and selling. So you don't get to judge that. You don't know everybody's circumstances. You have no idea why they're doing that. All right. Some people, I have seen it with my own eyes, will purposely take a loss so they can write it off on their taxes. Now, who are you to question that strategy? If it works for them, then it works for them. Some people will book a loss on purpose just so they can write it off on their taxes. So you may say, oh, this person just got smoked in that stock. I can't believe you bought it 200 and watched it go to $3. Why did you get out? I need that loss on my taxes, player. See what I'm saying? So you don't know why people are doing what they're doing. Anyway, another interesting take that they had here is in another illiquid market. Now, peep this one. All right, here it goes. The one item on the list I considered low priority and did not set in motion was selling some baseball cards I've had for almost 50 years. Once again, baseball cards are also illiquid assets. All right. They're assets because they're worth more than what you paid for them. All right. So that they're an asset because they're valuable. They're worth something, but they're illiquid. Card collecting, coin collecting, bottle cap, whatever it is, stamp collecting. That's a long game. That's a buy and hold game. It's not a flip game. There is no market that I know of where I can go in and get long and short chocolate chip cookies and make a profit today. Yo, do you see that Oreo cookie chart? Man, that chart was all that. I made a killing. But now I'm short Nestle cookie now. You mean Nestle the stock? Nah. You didn't know there was a cookie market? Yeah, I'm short the cookie market. Or there's an annihilator market that just opened up. Man, I'm long 50 packages of contracts of grape annihilators. Yeah, man, they going up. This doesn't exist. So until it does, these are illiquid markets. These are illiquid assets, not easily to sell. Let's move on. He says, I collected cards from the age of 8 to 12 back in the early 1970s. I collected them because I loved baseball, the Phillies, and liked to trade them and pitch them in the schoolyard. I had no thoughts about them being worth something many years into the future. A couple of decades ago, when baseball cards were hot, I put the most valuable ones in plastic sleeves, put them in a plastic bag, and didn't think about them for years. For the last year, I've sensed this financial madness might offer an opportunity to sell a few pieces of cardboard for prices that will never materialize again. I have hundreds of cards, mostly from 1975. Included in this set are 3 Robin Yount rookie cards and 2 George Brett rookie cards. There is a company called PSA that charges you to trade the cards. This then sets a selling price for the cards. I have no idea what constitutes a near perfect card with a 10 grade from a near mint card with a grade of 7, but the price difference is vast. As Robin Yount grade 10 card is worth $55,000 and a George Brett grade 10 card is worth $97,500, I find this utterly ridiculous. But it is certainly worth exploring for that kind of money. Even getting a couple of hundred for a grade 7 card will be fine. I don't see any imperfections in my cards, but who am I to judge? The author goes on to say, back in December, when I went to the site, it seemed like a pain to go through the grading process, and I was confused by their pricing scheme. Like, life got busy, so I forgot all about it until this week. I decided I was going to send the cards in and see what they concluded. I went to the PSA site and got this message from the CEO of PSA. Peep this, quote, hello, PSA customers. Since my last update, the momentum behind the hobby has only accelerated. Supply and demand. In fact, our Collectors Universe President CEO, Joe Orlando, recently shared the reality of the surge of submissions to PSA. I'll try to further illustrate what has happened. The sheer volume of orders that PSA received in early March has fundamentally changed our ability to service this hobby. The reality is that we recently received more cards in 3 days than we did during the previous 3 months. Even after the surge, submissions continue at never before seen levels. Given our growing backlog, it would be disingenuous for us to continue to accept submissions for cards that will be unable to process in the foreseeable future. It's an unpleasant conclusion, especially after the March 1 price increase, but it is necessary to properly serve the customers who have already submitted to PSA. Effective immediately, PSA is temporarily suspending our value regular, and express service levels. This will allow us to fully unbox and receive the recent surge of orders and focus on our most impacted service lines. We will take a tiered approach to reintroducing these service levels. Our goal is to bring all suspended service levels back by July 1 of 2021. Okay? This is now a baseball card bubble frenzy on par with stocks and real estate and crypto and art and used cars and lumber and NFTs and just about anything you can think about. All right. Now, the writer says, with my investing luck, the baseball card market will surely collapse before July the 1st. So anyone willing to take a chance can contact me. I'll send you all three of the cards. And sometimes the stupidity of the masses exceeds my lowest expectations. Now, in the author's view, there are signs everywhere that we're in an everything bubble. He says that getting rich quick has engulfed the entire nation in a madness never seen before in human history. Effortless enrichment is a delusion, and all delusions end in tears. An entire nation was convinced by those controlling the narrative the annual flu was a pandemic by giving it a new name, marketing the you-know-what out of it, using a faulty test to artificially inflate cases, and understanding they were dealing with compliant, obedient sheep. If they can make you believe that, they can make you believe anything. To me, that was the most powerful part of the entire article. Incredible. Incredible. And he has a point. The author has a point. However, he admitted with his own admission, he is horrible at timing. Just like people were horrible at timing back in 2000 when the NASDAQ bubble bursted. That's why I developed the PulseWave reports. The PulseWave reports help you know when it's time to possibly get out of harm's way, when it's possibly time to take profit, or at least tighten up stops so you can lock in profit. So when and if the market does turn, you don't look like an idiot. What is my mantra? Don't turn winning trades into losing trades. All right? Straight up. Take what you can and give nothing back, right? That's what that means. Take what profit you can and give nothing back. But don't get caught in the hype. Hype is a good thing because it drives more market participation. And with more market participation, you're going to have more financially independent people. Bubbles are never a bad thing. They're only bad when they pop and you're the last one holding the bag. So what's the moral of the story? Don't be the last one holding the bag. Understand that financial markets are tradable short-term markets. They're not designed for buy and hold, ladies and gentlemen. You need to understand that. They're designed for you to take profits along the way. It's not real estate. It's not baseball cards. All right. It's not art. It's not cars. All right. It's not bottles of rare wine. All right. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about financial markets that are designed with the short term in mind. Okay. So don't get mad because other people are going to PulseWaveTrading.com and signing up to trade with the PulseWaves and making a killing, and you not. You just standing there looking dumb, saying, "Oh, it's all a bubble. It's all going to end badly." I feel sorry for all of you. You should feel sorry for yourself for being a victim of the time value of money. There's opportunity cost, but there's also opportunity loss. And you will be kicking yourself when you could have been one of the lucky ones. All right. Not everybody is stupid enough not to get out of the market and take profit when the market turns. There are people who will get out at or near the top. Mark Cuban is one of the most famous examples of market timing. He knew the handwriting was on the wall. So he cashed out. He sold his company at the height of the market and was able to walk away a billionaire. Why? Because he cashed out. He didn't allow his greed to take hold of him. He said, I'm taking the money and I'm running. I'm out. I won. I won the game. I'm done. Let me cash in my chips. That's how you're supposed to do it, ladies and gentlemen. Greed is what kills people. And bias. The author in this, I feel sorry for this author because they've acknowledged their shortcoming, but you haven't heard them do anything about it to address it. They just assume that it can't be done. They just assume that because there's a frenzy that the majority of people are going to get hurt and no one's going to walk away a winner because they believe that the financial markets are a zero-sum game, and they are not. The only zero-sum game that exists is at the casino, and the markets are not a casino. Even though people approach the market like a casino, it is not a casino. All right? With that being said, folks, it's that time. I'm done. Do me a favor and smash that like button. All right? And have a great weekend. Do something fun and relaxing. Spend time with friends and family and spouses and children. Play some cool video games. Watch some cool movies. Do what you do. But remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out. Peace.